Today, we discuss one of the most tragic love stories ever known to man. It is the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. In Greek mythology, Orpheus was a most excellent musician. He was exceptionally gifted. His music was so powerful that it could charm anything and everything. Orpheus lived a peaceful and joyful life. He was loved by gods and mortals alike because of his enchanting musical talents. On a fateful day, he met the love of his life, a beautiful nymph named Eurydice. He was so happy when he learned that she loved him too. And so began their love story. They were so deep in love that they soon decided to spend the rest of their lives together. The young couple happily went to the god of marriage, Hymen, for his blessings. But not only did Hymen refuse to bless their marriage, he instead prophesied that their union would not last. Adamantly in love, our young couple paid no heed to the words of Hymen and decided to get married without his blessings. Unfortunately, their happiness would be short-lived. On the day of their wedding, as Eurydice walked through a meadow, a certain god named Aristeus saw her and was captivated by her beauty. Normally, Aristeus was a benevolent god, but on this day, he was strangely interested in another man's wife. He chased after her to possess her. As she ran away to escape his advances, Eurydice unknowingly stepped on a viper hidden in the grass. The snake bit her with its poisonous fangs. Seeing what had happened, Aristeus lost interest. He knew the snake's venom was lethal. Eurydice could not possibly survive. And so, he went his way, leaving Eurydice tormented by the venom. Somehow, Eurydice made it to Orpheus, but the venom was too strong. She had only few minutes left to live. Soon, in a moment of shared sorrow, she died in the hands of her husband. Orpheus was heartbroken. The death of his beloved wife left him devastated. So great was his grief that he could not find joy in anything. His faith in the gods and in all he believed began to dwindle. He no more sang songs of happiness, but songs of sorrow and tragic love. The music that had once brought beauty and happiness to the world now became mournful and filled with sorrow. Even the trees and the animals mourned with him. Unable to bear the loss of Eurydice, Orpheus decided to take the most daring and dangerous journey any mortal could attempt. He would descend into the underworld and bring back his wife. The underworld was ruled by the god Hades and his wife Persephone. It was a place where the souls of the dead resided, and no living being could enter it easily, let alone return. Yet Orpheus was determined. Armed with only his lyre and an unshakable love, Orpheus ventured into the dark and foreboding realm of the dead. As he played his lyre, he sang a song of his love and sorrow. The ferryman who led dead souls to the underworld was moved by his music and offered to take him the underworld free of charge. At the gates of the underworld, Orpheus encountered the dangerous watchdog Cerberus. Just as Cerberus was about to attack the intruder, Orpheus began to play his song. He sang in songs and told his story to the hell dog Cerberus. Cerberus was so touched by his music that it allowed Orpheus entrance into the underworld. In fact, even the gates of the underworld were compelled by his songs. They opened up of their own accord. As he walked in the realm of the dead, Orpheus felt so sad and depressed. His own solace was his music. And so, Orpheus played music and sang songs to express his sadness. Unknown to him, all the residents of hell had come to a stop. The demons no longer tormented souls. The souls were no longer in anguish. The terrifying creatures of the underworld all stopped. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Everyone was in awe because of the songs of Orpheus. Somehow they could feel his pain. It was as if they were experiencing it themselves. And the feeling of losing someone so special to one's heart was agonizing. To an extent, it was more agonizing than hell itself. As Orpheus journeyed deeper into the underworld, his music continued to work its magic until finally, he stood before Hades and Persephone, the king and queen of the underworld. Hades had noticed the commotion, or rather the lack of commotion in his realm, and demanded from this mortal the reason behind this strange behavior. Orpheus was so overwhelmed with grief. Instead of words, he began to play his lyre, conveying his emotions without words. He sang of his love for Eurydice, the injustice of her death, and his desire to retrieve her from the underworld. His music was so powerful and filled with such raw emotion that it stirred even the cold heart of Hades. Moved by the purity of Orpheus' love and the beauty of his music, Hades made a rare exception, one he had never made before. He agreed to allow Eurydice to return to the land of the living. Orpheus jumped up in joy. He was excited and happy. Just as he was about to give his thanks, Hades finished his previous statement. The request of Orpheus was unprecedented, but Hades agreed to fulfill it if, and only if, Orpheus could fulfill a similarly unprecedented condition. Orpheus asked the god what condition was required. He was willing to do anything. Surprisingly, Hades' condition was that Orpheus must not look back as he went back to the mortal realm. He promised that Eurydice would follow behind him, but he must not look upon her while she was still in the underworld. If he did, Eurydice would be lost to him forever. That was the one condition. Orpheus was happy. He did not need to kill a lion or slay a bear. This condition was odd, but it was doable. Orpheus eagerly accepted the condition, and Hades called forth the spirit of Eurydice from the depths of the underworld. And although Orpheus could not see her, he felt her presence behind him. His heart leaped with joy, knowing that his beloved was following him back to the world of the living. With his lyre in hand, Orpheus began the long and treacherous journey back to the surface, leading Eurydice through the winding paths of the underworld. As they walked, Orpheus played his music to calm his nerves and to keep his mind focused on the task at hand. He could hear Eurydice's soft footsteps behind him, but he was careful not to look back. However, doubt and fear began to creep into Orpheus' mind. What if Hades had tricked him? If Eurydice was not really behind him, and he was walking this path alone? As they neared the exit of the underworld, the temptation to look back grew stronger and stronger. The sunlight was just ahead, and Orpheus could feel the warmth of the world above. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, Orpheus turned to look at Eurydice. In that fleeting moment, he saw her radiant and alive, just as he remembered her. But as his eyes met hers, tragedy struck. Eurydice let out a sorrowful cry as her spirit was pulled back into the darkness of the underworld. Orpheus had broken the one condition, and Eurydice was lost to him forever. Desperate, Orpheus tried to follow her back into the underworld, but this time the gates were closed to him. He called out to Hades and Persephone, but they would not listen. No mortal was allowed to enter the underworld twice, And so, Orpheus was left to wander the earth alone, mourning the loss of his beloved. Orpheus's grief was unbearable. He no longer played his lyre for the joy of others, and his songs became laments filled with sorrow. He shunned the company of mortals and gods alike, retreating into solitude. Some say that Orpheus swore off the love of women after losing Eurydice, choosing instead to dedicate his life to his music. Eventually, Orpheus met a tragic end. He was attacked by a group of Maenads, the frenzied followers of Dionysus, who tore him apart in a fit of madness. In his death, Orpheus was reunited with Eurydice in the underworld, where they could finally be together forever. The story of Orpheus and Eurydice is a timeless tale which has inspired countless works of literature, art, and music throughout history. It speaks to the eternal struggle between hope and despair, between faith and doubt, and the lengths to which we are willing to go for the ones we love.